welcome to the League of Extraordinary Atheists for Humanism, where we attempt to apply logic and reason to religion and politics. I am here with my wonderful, wonderful co-host, Christy Santiago. Say hi.
That's me. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Happy last Friday of the year. Thank you for joining us for our 2019 finale. We're not going to go out with a bang per se, but I think we do have some good hot topics to talk about for the night. If you guys remember, I threw out a little Twitter poll of sorts to see what everyone thought were the top 3 topics of the year, and we went with the most relevant in there, which there were only like 4 votes. So, and that's fine because it made it really easy, and those who commented picked some good shit, but really some awful shit. So that's what we went with. So the first thing we have to talk about tonight are coups, because there's
Which
been
rhymes
multiple.
with coups.
It does.
Just stating the obvious here.
Thank you, Christy. So I think the 2 that we're really going to talk about right now is the one in Bolivia, right? And
yes.
And then the one in Venezuela as well.
And there's been more than that, but those are 2.
There have been.
Biggest, most controversial,
Yeah. And from what I know, there was almost one. Excuse me. Over in the UK. If Jeremy Corbyn would have gotten any closer to winning, there was a comment. There was a recording that was shared showing that what's his face said that
they wanted to pull what they tried to pull to FDR was, a corporate coup, pretty much.
Yeah, basically. Who's the dude I'm trying to think of? Who said that?
Boris.
I think
Boris and Jeffrey Corbyn and I'm not going to skip over.
No, the I want to say he's the Secretary of State right now, or the acting Secretary of State. Who do we have right now?
I'm not going to look it up.
Are we both drawing a blank?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, everyone. Let me find this. Brain fart on air. What? Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo.
That's my mind is done on purpose.
Yeah. Eradicate him from your mind. Yeah. Mike Pompeo had said in a closed meeting that if Jeremy Corbyn gets close to winning the election, they were going to interfere.
Yes.
In one way or another. They were going to make sure that didn't happen, which is just pretty much a definition of a coup. So
the opposite of democracy as well.
Is yeah. So, like, to spread democracy around the world, the U.S. usually does undemocratic things. So,
yeah.
I know it sounds strange, but it makes a lot of sense if you don't think about it. All right, so we're kind of getting off to a cold start here. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Christy, because she has a nice 13-minute and 41-second bit to go through concerning Bolivia, and then I'm just gonna recap everything that I remember from Venezuela.
Yes.
And then we'll go on.
That works for me. Time to take a sip.
Take a sip.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
And for Brantley's niece, she's hanging out in the paintbrushes today.
There's the turtle.
Where she likes to be. So I woke up and that's where she was. She likes to move around. I have whipped cream in my eggnog with cognac, and it's scrumptious. I just wanted to say that. Okay, on Bolivia. Bolivia is a really, really frustrating story. Before I get into it, I think, there's a lot of facts that should go before telling any of this. Like, it is over 80% indigenous, and their president, who The coup was just, he was the one who got pushed out in a military coup. He was indigenous himself, and he's been known to say, he says it all the time, my only sin is being born Indian. My only sin is being born indigenous. So, and I'm sure that a lot of people feel that way considering what happened. There's a guy who comes in who served in the military. He's a veteran, but he is an indigenous veteran. And I'm sure that there are areas of Bolivia, I mean, it stands to be factual. There's areas in Bolivia that see him as nothing but a heathen. And it has been said that they think that if you're not evangelical and follow their prescribed version of Christianity, that you're a demon or the devil. And they have gone through Bolivia and removed all of the indigenous flags. They have burned them. They are irate that this president made Bolivia a secular country, which had freedom of religion. I think that is almost like beyond purity test. That is a staple for a democracy. It has to be. You have to allow people to worship any god they want to or not, and it shouldn't be mandated by the state. And that was one of the things that he accomplished, making Bolivia a secular state. Go ahead.
So I just want to recap real quick. This obviously has nothing to do with race or any kind of identity whatsoever.
Yeah, but who plays
sure everyone's understanding.
Yes. Okay, so Evo Morales, the president of Bolivia, was forced to leave the presidency via a military coup. This is what we know. National elections were held on October 20th, 2019. The following day, October 21st, the losing party of Carlos Mesa requested that his militants mobilize. Carlos Mesa called for them to reject the election results under the pretext that there was fraud, of course. Later that night, October 21st, same day, they started to burn down electoral offices throughout Bolivia. They burned offices in 5 departments that week. That's how this coup d'etat began in Bolivia. The national police did not guarantee the safety of any of the electoral tribunals, and were also massive voting rights abuses during the elections. They're documented, they are a fact. Voter suppression, gerrymandering, name it. A lot of work went into getting him out. This isn't the first coup attempt in Bolivia. This is the first one that worked in 13 years. Let's see. And then after this week of hell and burning electoral offices throughout Brazil, the Pro Cruz Civic Committee, which Luis Fernando runs, requested that Evo Morales step down and organized mobilizations and strikes across the country. Evo Morales and his administration resisted until October 8th, but then the police rioted and joined in the coup. On the 10th of November, in the middle of the night, the OAS, Organization of American States, also joined in with the coup. Finally, the day of the 10th, the armed forces told Evo Morales to resign. And if the military comes to you fully armed and tells you you have to resign, that is the definition of a military coup. You see, without the armed forces, without the police, and with a mobilized right wing, there was no guarantee of safety any longer. And so, to avoid any bloodshed, Evo Morales stepped down with his vice president and colleague, Alvaro Garcia Linera. Alvaro Garcia and him are together throughout this whole experience. On November 9th, Evo Morales went from La Paz to the tropical zone of Cochabamba, which is fun to say, Cochabamba, when he and Alvaro Garcia arrived at the airport. The security team called and told Evo that they had received messages and calls, and they were being offered $50,000 apiece if they would turn him over to whoever was making these calls and leaving these messages. The very next day, November 10th, Evo and colleagues traveled again from La Paz to the airport of Chimore. The presidential plane should arrive at the civil or commercial terminal. That's important. Side note, thanks to all of the members of the Bolivian social movements and local authorities in that region who mobilized and came quickly to the military terminal, they came together and helped their president get out of there alive. They communicated with their president and told Evo that the soldiers on the ground were all in uniform and they were very well armed. They were waiting in the military hangar. So, when they should have been landing in the commercial or civil terminal, they very suspiciously arrived at the military terminal. Inside the plane, I would probably piss myself. On Monday, when the flight to Mexico was supposed to take off at 11 a.m., and the plane didn't arrive, they waited fearfully. I can't even imagine. That's a very serious place to be in. Around 3:15, so at 11 they were supposed to leave, and the plane didn't even arrive. So now it's 3:15 p.m. when the Mexican plane was entering Bolivian airspace. They delayed it, and it went back to Lima, Peru. It couldn't just keep flying. There's not infinite fuel. And then at 9:25 p.m., a military plane arrived. Meanwhile, there was a massive gathering of people that I had mentioned there to support their president. At first, 10,000 people commenced upon this area, and then it stayed a steady 6,000 to 7,000 the whole time. They were mobilized near the airport and near the military terminal, and they were there to stop Evo Morales and crew from being detained only. They were peaceful protesters. Reports now show that there were police and soldiers dressed in civilian clothes among these protesters. So it could have gone a thousand ways and none of them good. The plane finally did arrive 5 minutes later at 9:30 at night, and they boarded. When they were starting down the runway to take off, the commander of the Air Force says, quote, "Our permission to take off has expired," end quote. And they had to go back to the commercial terminal. So now they're out of the military terminal, in the military plane, in a commercial terminal, not allowed to leave. But Evo Morales got in contact with people in the crowd. I'm sure he knew plenty of them. I mean, these were his people. They were there to make sure he wasn't killed, or at least if he was, there would be 7,000 witnesses. He told them to stay put. He told them, please don't disperse. Stay there. They're not letting us leave. And when they saw their president safely board the plane, they started to disperse like any crowd would. Evo and crew were on the plane for more than half an hour when the pilots told them that they no longer even had permission to take off at all, and that they weren't going to be allowed to land in Lima, Peru, because Bolivia was calling Peru saying, if you do this, this will happen. Evo was sure that if he hadn't recalled his supporters on the ground and tell them to please keep protesting and to remain for his safety, there definitely would have been a military intervention, and he and his administration and his vice president would have been detained. Vice President Alvaro Garcia spoke with the commander of the Bolivian Air Force and said, quote, "If you don't let us take off, Chamorro is going to burn," and that's where they were. He also said, "Put me in touch with the co-pilot." And to the co-pilot, he said, "You have permission to take off." So this is all happening so fast, and I don't think that he actually got the permission. I think he just took matters in his own hands. Evo Morales and his vice president, Alvaro Garcia, are now in Mexico, where they've been offered asylum. So what about President Morales' family? What about Morales's cabinet members? What about his party, the Mass Party? What about his supporters that are still in Bolivia? Evo's family is being threatened, and they burned Evo's sister's house down in the city of Oruro. It's O-R-U-R-O, which is hard to say. His children, who are seriously threatened with, imagine the worst thing you could say would happen to someone's children. They are now in Argentina, and they have security around the clock. The newly pretend government in Bolivia has made the leaders of the Movement for Socialism, Evo's own MAS party, MAS, renounce their positions by, get this, also burning down their homes and threatening their families. They've pushed out the national leaders, the progressives, the leftists, and the anti-imperialists too. And, you know, in a tiny country like Bolivia, who your leader on behalf of all the people has kept the international banks out, you know, the IMF. He doesn't want to be beholden to these financial institutions who we all know come in and make sure you need their support. They give it to you with all of these strings, including multinational corporations get to come in and reap the benefits from your resources. And you unfortunately can no longer afford to do social services for your people, because if you don't pay this back, we're going to, you know, we'll just take it. So he was protecting them and doing a really good job of it as well. So they kicking the anti-imperialist out, that's sad. You can see on his face now, if you watch any of his speeches from a year ago, and see on his face now, there's just the sadness. And I don't think it's even for himself. It is sad what's happening to him and his family, but I think that it's for the people who's he was their voice. He, you know, is one of them, and he made it to the top where he could actually make decisions on their behalf, and was, and that's just not allowed in quote unquote America's backyard. In Evo's own words, quote, they went from racism to fascism, and they did it overnight. And from fascist ideology straight to the coup d'etat. President Morales' ministers have active arrest warrants, and 3 of them are seeking asylum right now in the Mexican embassy in La Paz. And these threatened peoples are completely without proper security all throughout the country. Just further proof that this coup d'etat is in the style of the previous military dictatorships of the 1960s, of the 1970s, and part of the 1980s, which is what his whole goal was to get away from and make it a secular country and bring democracy and bring, you know, there's so many resources in this area, and to bring the prosperity that these resources would bring to his people. So sad. In 10 days, there have been more than 30 deaths by live ammunition, while in Evo's administration, there were 0 people killed by live ammunition. There have been more than 400 people injured by gunshot and more than 1,000 unjustified detentions, and some of them haven't been told what they're being held for. They haven't had a court date. They're not given a phone call. They're not allowed to talk to a lawyer. And now this new pretend government, the interim president, they're accusing people of terrorism in Bolivia and sedition, and are planting evidence even. Some of the authorities are now criminalizing social movements and accusing them of being terrorists. Does it sound familiar? Evo Morales governed Bolivia as president since 2006, which is 13 years with a relative stability and prosperity. He was the first elected president to complete military service and is a proud veteran. And isn't that funny? He's the first one to complete military service. And he's the kindest. He's the most egalitarian. And here we have military dictators, and you know, they had bone spurs, wink wink, and couldn't participate, but they'll be the first one to send other people's kids out to die for them. Evo had faith in the Bolivian armed forces when he was president, and you know, and the police. He worked with them. He made sure that they had training to bring a situation from a boil to a simmer instead of just killing. These were important things to him. Even though his administration never armed them the way that they're armed right now, we can see that under this new interim government, though, it's totally different. An example, there was only 1 helicopter still in commission when they had to flee. The day he had to flee, there was 1 helicopter in commission that, you know, would be used for the president and for government. There are now 25 helicopters just weeks later. Yes, and they're fully equipped to shoot people. They're armed to the teeth. They're huge guns. It's a totally different Bolivia in a matter of days. Now that Evo has been forced out, the armed forces are using these new helicopters and airplanes to kill our Bolivian brothers and sisters. Evo had 62% of the vote in the last election, and that's with the voter suppression that's been proven. We haven't had a president win by that big of a margin. FDR. I want to say Reagan had, it was considered a landslide for American elections, but not even 62% with voter suppression, with gerrymandering. Bolivia's 80% indigenous people, and Evo Morales, who is indigenous himself, was their president. And that's, I can understand if you say that's identity politics, and I'll grant that to you. It's still a fact that he was one of them, and he represented one of them, or all of them as one of them, is what I'm trying to say. He had nationalized Bolivia's resources. Ding, 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 ding. I mean, you nationalize your resources or you get off the petrodollar and sanctions are coming immediately. He did this to benefit the Bolivian people. We know how the multinational corporations, aka American multinational corporations, feel about sovereign nations using their own nation's resources to benefit their own people. Sanctions, regime change, wars, and mass propaganda always seems to follow. I want to mention a couple other things that he did. That he removed transnational corporations from Bolivia, told them you're no longer allowed to set up shop here and treat our workers like it's a third world country and pollute and then take all the benefits, all the prosperity back home. You're not allowed. So he kicked them out. He also kicked them out from the hydrocarbon sector and from mining. Those three are huge. So there's corporations that were entitled in their mind to this for whatever cockamamie reason in their head. He reduced extreme poverty over 30% within the first few years of his presidency, with social programs that were paid for by nationalizing his country's resources. Bolivia has massive lithium resources. With international bidding, they had bidding like we do, like Canada does, like Germany does. It's just something that you do. What can you offer me? If you're just wanting your multinational corporations to come set up shop so that you don't have to pay workers, you want to process it all, you want to do all the stuff, but pay my workers $3 a day, or maybe it's even $5 an hour. It's still not enough. And I don't know the numbers on that. I didn't look up what they were paid underneath multinational corporations compared to Bolivia, but I would be interested to find that out. By doing this bidding, Bolivia was awarded service contracts with China, Europe, and Germany. And with China, it was because China said, well, what do you need? And let's make up a contract that benefits both of us. You need roads, you need schools, you need hospitals, you need things like that. And we know we have technology, so we can help you build those. And this is what we want to do. And I think that that's the future of doing trade with countries. It should be beneficial to both, and it should not hurt the citizens of that country who have nothing to do with the trade. They don't work in it, they just live there. And I think that I like the way Evo was trying to make sure that these type of processing plants wouldn't go in the poorest neighborhood. There is one that I was reading about that isn't in the best of neighborhood, but it also doesn't have like houses backed up to the fence. So whatever is burning in there is making everybody sick. He thought it would be best if it went on national land or Bolivian federal land, so that it wouldn't hurt the people, and somewhere that is not where families go to spend their Sundays and go picnic. I like that idea. I think that's smart. You're trying to benefit everyone involved. Bolivia is now exporting potassium chloride because of Evo. That was him that made sure that he would be able to not just mine it. There were multinational companies that were in Bolivia that would be in charge of the mining, even though it was Bolivians that were doing the backbreaking work. They were still benefiting from it. So he kicked them out, and now he's mining it and exporting it. And exporting is something that big multinational corporations want to have charge of. They really want to have charge of that, in their own factories even. So he's had factories built so that his people could work in the factories on their land in their country and reap the benefits. Not US factories either. No US factories are in Bolivia that have to do with any of the mining that they do. And next year, they were on track to start processing lithium carbonate from their own processing plants, not US ones. And that was a really big deal for a lot of these corporations. They just couldn't stand, lithium's the future. So and Bolivia was going to start next year 350 tons per year just to start. That's really good for Bolivia, and he was trying to make sure that it stayed being good for Bolivia and the regular people, not just the couple of families. They had pilot programs for lithium types of energy, which the future of the planet. I mean, obviously, it's the future of the planet. If we want to use renewable energy, we're going to need batteries so that we can store this energy. The U.S. corporations, I think, were left out completely of all the lithium. And it's not because they said, you can't come and talk to us, show me what you have to offer. That was said. It was because the reply, they only chose the countries to come in and make deals with them that said, well, let me know what you need and what you think we can offer you, and we'll work out a deal. That was an offer. And it makes me think, how many small countries have that problem? America's big and strong, and they came and want to do a deal with us, and they're promising all these jobs, but that's where it ends. They're going to set up shop, and your people are going to work there under shitty conditions. They're not going to get any benefits, and they're not going to get paid very much, not what they're worth. And then all the profits come home. And I'm sure that happens so much. And I'm glad that there are world leaders that know this and have tried to steer their people and their policies away from it. What breaks my heart is that no matter how much he tried and how much good he did, it fell apart because of all of this. And the pretend president is a crazy evangelical. She had less than 4% of the vote. She had 4 people in the party she's a part of. There were 4 people in the whole parliament, Congress of that party. It's very fundamentalist evangelical. After burning all the flags and saying that Bolivia will no longer be a secular country, that Bolivians are religious, and that the Bible is coming back. They paraded through the street with this Bible that's like this thick and so big, and she's holding it and yelling, "The Bible is coming back into the Capitol, and we are."
It was definitely food for the base.
Yeah, yes.
It was.
It's just a very sad. It's disturbing. I love history. I'm sure you guys all know that. And I read about stories like this from a long time ago, or 50 years ago even, but this is in real time, and it's very disturbing. It's heartbreaking. I don't know what his future holds. They just did, a week and a half ago, they put out an arrest warrant for him. For what? What did he do? They also signed a law that him or anyone in his party, they had to renounce. That party doesn't exist anymore. They're not allowed to be in that party. They're not allowed to.
Wait, did he wage I'm sorry. Did he wage an illegal war in the Middle East?
Nope.
Did he falsify election shit? Did he murder a bunch of people?
No.
Did he
very nonviolent.
Did he set the world record for drone strikes?
No, I think that's America.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, that's America. No, and I him choosing Iran. He's doing trade deals with Iran, China, and Venezuela. And it's because they offered his people and the nation he represents a better opportunity than others. And I think as a leader, it's your responsibility to not care what people think, to do what's best for your people and not cause any harm while you're doing it. And I believe that's what he did. And yeah, it sucks.
It really does. It really does. The whole situation does. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I mean, I blame capitalism because, because I mean, again, you mentioned the lithium. Why are we doing this? And it's not just because of that. There are also religious reasons, but it has to do a lot with economics and how we practice it worldwide. Like, we want resources. We don't want to nationalize things.
Right.
It's not good for business, and what's not good for business can be bad for the economy if those who are in charge of the economy don't like it.
Yes. Well, right? Even one of the people who said gave him the hardest time in the U.S. was Obama. He was just ruthless to him. There were no, he wouldn't give, he would love to do. He said, the American people are great. I would love to, help my country be on the same level as far as opportunity, not become Americans, we're Bolivians, but have those same opportunities. And Obama was there at every turn. His answer was no. He wouldn't even sit down and talk. No. And think about, Obama, like I said last week, he had primaried Hillary Clinton from the left, and that's how he got the spot. And the minute she was nobody was any longer in his way. He was the candidate. None of that talk even came out of his mouth anymore. And so then he filled up his whole administration with big bankers. Well, those people do not want a country like Bolivia to have control over their own destiny. Have sovereign, rights. They don't want that. They want to reap all those benefits, because what we're talking about is like on a different level. We're talking about billions and billions and billions over, their lifetime, and they don't want to give that up or let someone else have it, especially a brown indigenous person who they feel is not the same as them. And that's just gross. And if he doesn't have the same religion as you, if he doesn't even have religion, if he thinks that nature is all we have, he's less than you because he doesn't. I'm so sick of the religion and the entitlement and there's so many entitled people who I feel that everyone that is not, able to make decisions with their billions of dollars is less than them. And we need to get our democracy back.
We do. And when we say we mean like more than just Americans, more than just the countries who are watching right now, because we got people all over the world. Like, we have a small audience, but I'm very proud of our diverse audience. It's fucking awesome, and thank you all for being here. You really appreciate it. Oh, hi, there's my Twitter sound. So let me mute myself. I apologize, everyone.
Cinnamon is delicious. I thought everyone should know. Cinnamon is so delicious. Carry on.
One of the things I wanted to say about that, the whole thing, real quick, because I was in the midst of blaming capitalism.
Fair.
Well, I wanted to piggyback on the fact that Obama did beat Hillary from the left. Every time Hillary has been really, what's the word I'm looking for? When someone's put up a fight to to Hillary Clinton, and like done well, whether they won or not, it's been from the left.
Yep.
Look at Biden now. The only like real competition he has is from the left. It's populism. It's what the people fucking want. Yeah. It's not rocket science. It's really not. It's just politics. And when you pay attention to it, it's really not that difficult.
Yes, and if one more person says you have to be more center in order to beat Trump, what just happened in 2016? Like, did none of that happen? Were you not here? That's what we tried. So, and then we had a whole bunch of peer review on it, everybody screaming their heads off. And so as people who care about evidence, that didn't work. There's no reason to try it again. So aggravating. Jingle bells, jingle bells.
So, for anyone who doesn't know, before I move on to Venezuela, and quickly, since we've been on this topic for about 40 minutes, yes, I want to shamelessly point out that Nacho just put the PayPal.com for his fundraiser for his computer, because he is only what is it, $94 or 90, what would it be, $97.34 away. Did I math that right? Away from his
so many people,
from his goal, for his Aussie dollars. So his Ollie dollar, or his Aussie dollars cost less than the American dollars. So you Americans should really pitch in. Your dollar stretches a long way, and it really, really helps. So
yeah, it's more than $1 in the future.
It is. It is more than $1 in the future.
Yeah, your money will time travel, and then help a person that doesn't exist. It's amazing.
So yeah. Do the thing. Please do. He's so close to his goal, and Nacho Witness. If you don't somehow know, he helps produce the show. He's the reason why we have time to like research as much as we do, and then just come on here for like Friday night, be like, hey, we're ready to go, and he has everything ready for us. He really keeps us ahead of the game, and not stressing about how we're going to do the show. It's just doing the show. So it's big shout out and thank you to Nacho Witness, and also a huge shout out to everyone who helped donate to help him get a new computer, because he helps the community, not more than just us, more than just the show.
Yeah, a lot.
So if nothing else, will you please click on the link and just look down the list of people who've donated, because it's a nice long list, and these people are awesome, and they all deserve a little shout out on their own. So please go and see that the 604 Atheists have donated $100, so on and so forth. Everyone's really pitching in, and it's really wonderful. This is one of the higher fundraisers we've had for the community, and it's really going to help us out. All right.
So loved.
Back to Venezuela, or starting Venezuela. So the Venezuelan coup happened back in, I want to say April. Is that right? We'll say April. It started in February or April. They're both the same month. Who cares? And
similar.
Yeah, and that was a funny one. Funny as in not that funny, but it was so obvious. You had Juan Guaido decided one day, hey, I want to be the president of this country, because that's how presidency works.
I want to be president.
Right. So he calls up Vice President Mike Pence and says, hey, I'm going to do the thing tomorrow. So if you could like back me up on that, bro, that'd be cool. And Mike Pence is like, sure thing, Bureau, because he was trying to be cool. And then Marco Rubio let out a tweet saying something about how Nicolas Maduro is a awful dictator, and Juan Guaido is going to save them all, basically. So to recap what I just said, it's basically like Nancy Pelosi decided one day she wants to be president, because that's how that works. So she called Vice President Ashton Putin, what? And and said, "Hey, can you back me up on that, bro?" And he was like, "Yeah, totally. Let me get Comrade Rubio to send a tweet out," and voila, Nancy Pelosi's president. But that's not how any of this works, right? We our government helped someone who is not president of a smaller country try to take over a country in a non-democratic way, when all we do is preach democracy all over the world. It's pretty and it's almost comical. Like when you actually look a little bit at the details, it's just like, holy shit, why is anything other than like what I just said being said? It was just it was a fucking circus show, and it was awful. They before they did the coup, where they just kind of propped up Juan Guaido, and he tried to like rally up Nicolas Maduro's forces. They sent a drone to go assassinate him, and that failed. Like there was a video of that. That was probably pretty terrifying for him, for Nicolas Maduro. And what else? I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought a little bit because there's so much to go over. At one point, even like when they were really getting desperate because they were just not getting enough support from the Venezuelan troops, they got some support, like from a few generals, and like one in specific, I don't remember his name. He started to send men to their protest, and they were going to like fight the counter protesters, like the Nicolas Maduro side. But so these soldiers were sent to protest to help Juan Guaido by their generals, and they're like, whoa, we're not actually support. Were we just sent to the opposite side? Like, it was kind of neat because I don't remember exactly at what point this happened, but I remember watching them being like, yeah, we were asked like by our superior officer to like come here, but like not for this.
Right.
They were pulling some shady shit on us.
Yeah.
And it's the whole thing, like I said, it was just a circus show. It was absolutely insane. And we don't need to argue about is Nicolas Maduro a fine leader, because he had his down points for sure, but he was running the country like no worse than half of the leaders in the world, honestly.
Better than
ours, yeah. Right, at least democracy wise, yeah. But yes, I mean, as far as I know, he was doing well. Like they
hold on, people weren't eating zoo animals. Okay, let's just put that out there.
Yeah, that was a false report.
Eating zoo animals.
No, we got that a lot, but no, that was debunked. Thanks for making me finish my drink. Again, sorry about myself. The whole thing was just wild. And Venezuela they don't have a lot of homeless because they repurposed a lot of buildings, and a lot of the buildings were not quite up to code. But again, there weren't a bunch of homeless people. Like, people had a roof over their heads because of taxes, right? Because of them using taxes to pay for homes for people. And also, the people who couldn't eat, who couldn't go to the store to buy anything, that was kind of a misnomer, because it kind of depended on which grocery store you walked into. You could go into some and it looked like the shelves were bare. But if you walked across the street, um, you could also find another grocery store that was pretty much fully stocked, except maybe they didn't have toilet paper, which is bad. Like, it's not great, but also, like, South Korea doesn't have toilet paper. Yeah, you go there and you need to know you bring your own or you use your hand. That's just what they do. So
yeah, a lot of that was because of sanctions.
It is sanctions.
Avocado oil, or no, it was olive oil, was something that had to be imported, and we would put sanctions on them, which means if other countries did it, they would be in violation, so they couldn't trade. Yeah, it's just a bully thing to do.
Yeah, it was.
And then they could turn around and say, look, they don't have this, and there's all these problems, and we can't afford any of this because he's a horrible leader.
Yeah, and although they had all these sanctions, at this time when people were like, they were struggling there because of sanctions, they were still getting like rations sent out to them. Like, they were rations in like a good way. Like, if people need food, the government was sending food out to homes. Like, people were eating. It wasn't just like, here's your food biscuit. No, they were getting meals. It was they were really doing socialism in a progressive way for the most part. Was it perfect? No. Were there issues? Yes. But when you have a nation divided like that, you will have those issues. When you have kind of the higher class, which is what we saw mostly, was the resistance there for the socialism. You get people who, like, they don't want to spend their money. They spend so much of what they have trying to tear down the system that was propping up the lower class. And you can get in a whole nother argument. You can get in a whole nother argument of, should people have that much money to begin with, or should the government take someone's wealth? And it is an interesting conversation, but I think, and if you're on the side of the super wealthy, you probably don't have an argument that's up to snuff. So that's my thoughts, and that's the Venezuelan coup and 7-minute rundown, more or less. So, and Christy looks like she's laughing a lot, but that's cool. I don't know if it was at me or not. I hope it was. So, okay, it's Stacy. She's laughing pretty hard. Okay. That said, I'm ready to move on. Are you ready to move on to the next topic, Christy? Cool. Because that was almost an hour just of coups.
Yeah.
But we had 2 big things for that. So, that said, I guess the next one. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm ready, I think. All right.
The wafers and the wine already.
Yeah. I wish there was more than a drop in this.
Lindsay.
So I may, yeah, I may run and grab a drink in the middle of any sentence here. If you will please look in the description below. I had Nacha add a few links to some of the videos that were done in this community over about the last year. I had mine released in November of last year, and then I did one in February with Beelzebub, which someone should send him a link and get him the hell in here, because I don't know where he's at. I was going to give him a bunch of props tonight, and I wish he was here for it. So Catholic scandal. What is this about? If you guys don't know, in August of 2018, we were given a grand jury report. It was released in Pennsylvania. I want to say Pittsburgh. I could be wrong. I did not redo all the research, but I did put my video again down in the description below. Please open the link now, pause it, save it for after this video. It's only about 16 and a half minutes long. It's really informative, and it's a topic that is very important. And then me and Ben's video, watch that right after, because we recap a lot of what I had went through and then talk about what was coming up in the later month, which I'm about to get to. This is why we're talking about it for 2019. So this grand jury went over reports over like the past 30 years of like child sex abuse victims, and not just child sex abuse, but also like adults too, because Catholics don't stop there. They just like to start there.
But don't you be gay.
Yeah, don't be gay. Don't be gay, say the Catholics.
But consent, shushment.
Yeah. So, and Ben's just joining in the live chat. So thank you for coming, Ben. I'm glad you're here. I have our videos linked down below, so you know. So I did a little deep dive after I saw Steve McRae and Kyle Curtis and Caitlin from Godless Engineer. I'll go through like some bits from this report. Yeah, I know they're not all together now. That's not the point. But yeah, it was pretty disgusting, and I'm not going to go over all of the gruesome details again right now. But again, I do want you to open the video, watch it after we have the show tonight. Please check it out, and also go ahead and like share these videos again, because one of the reasons we're sharing all of these topics tonight is not just because they're the biggest stories of the year. They're some of the most important stories of the year, and we didn't talk about them. We didn't talk about the coups near enough. We didn't talk about the Catholic Victims Summit, or whatever they wanted to call it, which was a failure enough, and we didn't talk about climate change enough. The 3 C's of 2019 were not talked about nearly enough, and that's why we're talking about it tonight. So I went through not only the 6 of the 8 dioceses in the state of Pennsylvania. I also touched base on the other 2 that were not in that report, but they were released in 2015. At least one of them were. And I went through at least one example from every diocese. And just to kind of show everyone kind of like what was going on, and not just what was going on, not just to report the gruesome facts, but also to show what the Catholic leadership did to cover it up. That's one of the most egregious things. That's one of the most important things to take away from it, is that their authority, and you'll see that at the very, very beginning of my episode. A huge part of this video is about the authority that they have, because it's divine. And if that does not merit having a spot on this show, like, I don't know what does. This is the perfect story to cover on the show where we like to cover religion and politics. Because before this grand jury report came out, the Catholic Church sent lobbyists to the courtrooms, and they tried to stop this report from coming out. Like they tried to bribe police departments. They had bribed police departments. That was actually in the report where they either paid their way out of some circumstances, and also just some of the police officers who the victims came up to and reported something. It was like, well, that's my father. That's my priest. I can't. I don't want to stir stuff up at church. It's absolutely terrible because when an 8-year-old comes up to you and says, "Hey, Father, this or that did this and this to me," you need to listen. You don't need to be like, "Kid, go the fuck home." And that's not one example. That's at least it's somewhere between 5 and 10
it's the usual.
out of
it's
the
more
301.
normal than not. Yeah, it's more normal than not.
Yeah, it was. And again, yeah, the report that I covered was there was over 301, but 301 confirmed cases of just the priests and bishops, but over 1,000 children. So the 301 number was the accused. So so the reason we're bringing it up again this year is because in March of 2019, the Pope, the Vatican decided that it would be best to deal with this matter immediately. In August, when this came out, I'm kidding, March of next year, we're going to hold a summit and victims can come and talk to us, the bishops and the Pope. And the Pope wasn't there. Some of the bishops that they wanted to talk to were not there. Right. They didn't really come to any real fundamental changes that they were going to really implement. That's a lot of what the video that me and Ben went over. He did a real good deep dive in that, and I joined in and listened to his info and commented. Like contacting like the authorities is something that should be in their secret playbook.
There shouldn't be a secret playbook.
Yeah, that's why it tells so much eyebrows in that.
Yeah.
Secret playbook. But yeah, they shouldn't have a secret playbook to deal with.
Like they instead of like on the wall the axe and the fire extinguisher, instead of those they have in glass. If you rape a child, break glass, and then you get to Sorry, yeah. No, that's not funny, but that's what they have us. Don't call the cops, call us and we'll help you clean the house for DNA. Like, what the hell? No, I heard that there were the people that showed up on the Catholic side, that they actually were genuinely good people who don't hurt children or girls or anybody. They're there because they want this to stop, which is great. However, they're not the ones who need this. The ones who should have been there are the ones who are accused of something, or it was almost like they had to do something, so they just did this. I don't know.
Yeah, the whole thing is pretty disgusting, and I didn't want to go through the whole thing tonight because we really could go on a long time. And if we do something more focused on this, I'd like to have Ben back on.
Yes.
BE Melzebub. Yeah, that'd be really good. But I did want to bring it up. I wanted to let everyone know that the links are down below. And if you guys want to comment on them or reach either of us on Twitter, I'm sure Ben wouldn't mind either, with any questions you guys have on it. That would be great, because not that we need these older videos to get more attention, but we do need the situation to have more attention, because give me a capital Q in the chat here if you did hear about this before tonight, because I'm really doubting that half of our viewers right now even heard about the story, because they just really didn't cover it. They hardly covered it in the news. They did for that week, maybe 2 when it came out, and then they just dropped it, just like everything else. And this is a real issue in our culture, with so much going on. And it's really hard to blame anyone, I think, like logically. Like you can blame the powers that be for covering up this Catholic sex abuse scandal. You can blame the powers that be for covering up climate change and real reasons why Donald Trump should be impeached, and how Hillary rigged the election in 2016, any of this. But it's never just one person doing it, right? There's too much going on for one person to be in control. There's too much going on for one group of people. There's a lot of human beings on the planet, and a lot of different people have power over what we hear and kind of what we do. But it really is up to us, viewers, and just, normal people, to research topics, to listen to stories that come out like this. And like people like Christy and I, when we listen to the news a lot and we hear something that sounds important, we do our due diligence, if I can speak, to try and check out the story and then bring it to you guys at the end of the week. Like, say, hey, this happened. Hey, this happened. This is how it made us feel. Because we don't hear enough of that in the news. Sometimes we cover topics 2 or 3 weeks out, but that doesn't mean they've lost their importance. And that's a big reason why we do the show. And this thing that happened that I covered last time back in February was a really good example of something that seems really old, but has not lost any importance whatsoever. So yeah, and I think I saw one Q down in the chat. Sergio asked him. So yeah, it's
Sergio lives in our apartment complex. He's our neighbor and our friend.
Oh, awesome! That's awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out with Christy, Sergio, and then coming here to do it more. Yeah. So again, let me look at my notes real quick. I really mentioned everything I wanted to on this. Last time, I'll say it, please open the links to Ben and I's videos down below and the details. That would be wonderful. I think they're really important to watch, not just for the gruesome details, especially which mine goes into. I really go into the details. For anyone who hasn't watched them, I really do. So bring a little alcohol. And yeah. And so I am sorry for that. It is depressing. It does give you the baddest of goosebumps. But again, as I said in my video, it's important to talk about this stuff so we realize just a little bit more how important this is to the people it happened to, because they still recall these details up to this day, even if it was 30 years ago. So I think that's important.
Right. And for I try to, as a humanist, place myself in someone's shoes when I'm taking in a story or whatever it might be, and to think that they are believers. They believe that this church is chosen by their God and that these men represent the word of God and they should trust them, and then they do the worst possible thing you could do to a child besides killing them. You just break that trust, and then it's even worse than that.
You break their mind.
believers. They're believing that their God wants this to happen to them, or all kinds of convoluted fuckery. It's just, yeah, it's bigger than the world wants to admit, and it's unacceptable.
Yeah, again, yeah, this topic's just it's kind of like looking at, it's weird looking at it now after doing like this whole last year is for me mostly focused on politics rather than religion and philosophy as much as like the last 3 years have been, the 2 years before it. To like look at how we view government and politics and news stories compared to how the Catholic society, the Catholic community deals with problems, and the authority, and how the authority deals with problems, trying to keep it within their own class or their own community without getting proper authorities involved with anything whatsoever. So it's a lot like Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses as well. It's a broken system within a broken system, and it's interesting. It's interesting. My new point of view, looking back at the situation. There's another thing I wanted to say, and then I'm pretty sure I forgot what it was. We did have a question from Rory Hubert. What about transubstantiation? What's your opinion on that one? Hit, take it to the head.
That things become other things when prayed over? Sure.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not Leviosa, it's Leviosa.
Rory, I don't know Rory very well. Do you know?
No,
I know he's.
But I'm glad you're here. I did know a Rory.
Yeah, I do.
It was beautiful. But I know I had a friend who had an uncle that was named Rory, and my mom's name's Darcy, and that's mostly a guy's name. So I'm just glad Rory's here.
Yeah, and so am I. I don't know if you believe in that, Rory, but we do not here. So I guess I kind of want to give a detailed answer because I don't know.
Yeah, it would be
I mean, go ahead.
Evidence. But if you have that, I would be totally down.
Yeah.
To witness the miracle before me.
Yeah, because I've taken communion, and not like the Catholic way. Like when I took communion with my family, it was always, I understood that this was a symbolic thing. When you take a bite of that tiny little wafer cracker thing, it's supposed to represent the body of Christ. When you drink the wine or like the juice or whatever they give us.
It's like nom human, and then you're drinking the blood. So are we at a Viking human sacrifice right now? What's going on?
It's just straight up cannibalism if you do it right.
Are we praying to Odin? Like what is going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not down with human sacrifice in any way.
No.
Even if it's a whole bunch of people and pretending, it's weird.
Yeah. It's
at this point I feel so awkward in religious environments. Like if someone wants to pray for me, I'm like, oh God, what am I supposed to do? So weird. It just is so, it feels at this point, it feels so alien to me. It does nothing about it feels normal. It feels like all of a sudden I'm in Twilight Zone and I need to not make people mad because they all believe that the sky is yellow and it's not. It's very alien to me these days. I don't know if that's just a phase that that's how I'm supposed to feel 2 years into not having magical thinking. I don't know. But yeah, very weird. Sorry, caveat. But I just noticed it too. I'm I'm not comfortable with it at all anymore. I feel very shit just went weird and I'm stuck there.
Yeah. So again, Rory, thank you for the question. I really do appreciate it. I hope we didn't answer it too harshly, because honestly, I don't know who you are, and I'm not trying to be a
No.
dick. But we definitely don't believe in any of that. That's some fairy tale magic.
I used to. Mac used to.
Yeah. Well,
Big time.
not that part. That part I didn't believe.
Yeah, I wasn't Catholic, but we still did that.
Mm-hmm.
Our church still did that, but our church didn't say that, by saying these words, nothing was said. It was the communion, and it's in, like symbolic. Obviously, that I wasn't Catholic, so, but I'm in Tampa now since age 11 and 13, those formative years. It's Cuban and Puerto Rican and Dominican Republic and Mexican, and there's Russian areas. There's so much here, and a lot of it is Catholic. A lot. Catholic is, the Spanish is, yeah. So I learned a lot of different religions at a young age.
Yeah.
All Christian though. All versions of the Jesus stuff. Yeah.
And just to be clear, not that it's super important or I need to say it right now, but like for anyone who is wondering, Catholicism may be my least favorite religion. I like to knock on Catholics more than almost anything else. So
I'd say Jehovah's.
I was always that way.
Is my least favorite.
Yeah, and that's super duper understandable. There's a ton of reasons, and you have a couple personal reasons, and that's fine. But I just live in a Catholic area, very Catholic area. So there's a lot of alcoholism.
And whatever Kent Hovind is, I don't like that either.
Oh my God.
I don't like Hovinism.
Young Earth creationism is the one that I love to hate. It's not my least favorite. It's maybe my favorite. Like, it really fucks people up, but it's so easy to argue.
They're not. I'm just silly.
Okay. So now that we've talked about Catholics long enough.
Yes, we really should talk about religion. We should pick it. We do it all the time, but to have a whole show about. We need
to have some more religious
and
episodes.
Things we don't like about it and make it interactive, but
Yeah, we need to get I would really like to have more of the Jehovah's Witness community on and get not just actual words in the show a little more next year.
That sexy voice.
Yeah, like have John Cedars and Telltale and all of them good people and beyond. So and
my heart gets so happy when someone makes it out of Jehovah's Witnesses. Every story, I'm like, oh yes, I'll hug you.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And I keep forgetting that, but ex-cult baby, she's 30 minutes away from me, and I need to have her. Yeah, like I've met her in person 3 times. She worked at a place which is a 2-minute walk from me at the time when we found out. We're like, what? So that was awesome. Right. Anyways, we do need to move on. So next topic. If you guys didn't know, one of the biggest stories of the year is Dave Rubin is not an atheist anymore. I'm kidding, but he really isn't. The next topic is a climate crisis. Also, you can thank Jordan Peterson for that, I guess. I saw that yesterday, and I had to fit that in somewhere. I'm so sorry. But it made me want to hurl and laugh.
Yeah, Rave Dubin is a whole nother.
He's a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
We need to do a special. Maybe for our patrons only, a Rave Dubin.
What happened, Rave Dubin?
What happened? Okay. So we're because of Dave Rubin, we have the climate crisis. Um, we so like we have the left screaming about this, but not always in coherent ways, and we have the right screaming about this being, I don't know, a leftist wet dream to be real because we want the world to end and be on fire or something like that. The climate crisis is a funny um, topic to talk about because of the lack of understanding that comes with it. And because of that lack of understanding, which starts in school, like middle school and high school, um, and homeschooling, we don't understand how to approach the topic. We don't understand how to talk about it. We don't understand how to deal with it, as in try to fix it, and we don't understand. Pick a third point. I don't know, but those two things are a big enough issue. Um, so a few of the things I wanted to bring up about this is we had a wonderful kind of breakout person really step up to the plate this year, and it was really honestly last year when Greta Thunberg um, kind of stepped up to the plate and became like the world's leading climate activist. And this year, she's traveled a large chunk of the world, and as awesome as that is, well, do you know all the places that she's gone, Christy? Can you name a few of the places? Because I'm not quite sure right offhand.
I know that she took a solar powered slash like a catamaran with this well, catamarans have sails thing, but it was also had engines that were solar powered from Norwegian area. She saw a few places in there, spoke there, talked to kids her ages there, and then came across the little pond between there and here and stopped here in the US, and she was all over the US, but
Yeah.
I don't know where she went next. I know she's been to more than just a few countries. But she hasn't flown, which I don't have anything against flying. I guess the only caveat to that would be jets, personal jets, having 3 personal jets. Yeah. I'm like, seriously? I mean, I get why a president and world leaders and special hospitals, and there's reasons to have jets, of course, but not one family should have like a fleet of them. I don't know, but that's
I mean, like,
I love that she's gone everywhere. Moderation. In a moderate way to show people that she could. Electric cars, and people can knock that she did all this thing, that she's trying too hard to be this, and I don't think she is. I think that she got an amazing opportunity. They said, what do you want to do? And she said, I want to go there without using anything, any type of fossil fuels. That's how I want to do it, to show that it can be done. And she's 16 and 17 during this time. That's rad. So
it is.
She's just so cool to me. Yeah, she is. Very cool.
It really is rad. She's like she is super cool. Yeah.
And all the kids that are struggling because they're diagnosed autistic, and they know that they're a little bit different, or they feel like they just don't want to get involved, or people don't understand it their way. I think that they especially are seeing that, I just need to have people encourage me, and I need to focus on what I want to do, and I could really make a difference in the world. And that's a beautiful gift to give kids anyway, or any kid that ever felt different, which is all of us. No one's unique in that everyone feels like they don't fit in, I'm sure, at some point in their life. And even me at 43, she makes you feel like, okay, wow, some people in our generation and around my generation, I'm 43, are doing stuff right with their kids, because there are all these kids that are, I don't know, just they care, even if they're not all the way informed, and they do get mocked for not knowing all of something, but they're kids who are just passionate about wanting to do the right thing and make the world a little bit better than they found it. And I think that in itself is so fucking rad. That's all I could ask for every human, is to make every space you came to, the people that you meet, a little bit better than when you found them. That's awesome.
Well said and well ended. So one or two more things that I want to point out about Greta real quick is that she really is like a gem. She's doing great things. The best way to sum it up is she leads by example, which is what anyone on the right would argue you should do if you want to tell people how to live their lives. Not that we're trying to tell anyone to live their lives, but going from, the devil's advocate argument. Why don't you do that? Well, why don't you, not eat meat, or, drive an electric car, or, do this, do that, don't fly. She really leads by example. She does all those things. And you see the double standard immediately, even from the left, not her left, but from American left. You see her taking these actions and then being criticized, like, why are you doing this? Or you're trying too hard to do this. Like, we ask you to do something, like, be the example of what you want. And they're like, all right, well, now you're just putting on a show. It's, and people focused on that. Like, Saturday Night Live focused on that for sure. And MSNBC, CNN, Fox focused on that a lot. They really vilified this. What is she, 16 still now? 16? I think you're muted. I'm sorry, Christy.
She was 16 then, but yeah, she's 17 now.
She's 17 now? Yeah, she's doing all these amazing things and really setting a really cool example, and just advocating, and not just her, but she's also organizing. She's organizing this other youth all over the world, people from the Philippines, from native communities, and just places all over the world. I know there's people from South America too.
Oh yeah.
I really can't remember all the countries, but she organized a lot of youth.
They made her part of their tribe. A lot of the tribes made her an honorary member of their tribe. I just thought that was awesome. Because they see an ally. Really awesome. Yeah, they see somebody who, hey, that's what we're doing. But they're not a blonde-haired Norwegian, Swedish girl who's, making kids skip school. It's different. Unfortunate. Yeah. It's different. And I don't like reading, she's in it for the wrong reasons, or that there is this like shadow organization that's the left that's using her. They found her and maybe she was legit at first, but they found that they could use this cute little blonde girl. And I was just like, where's citation, please? And why don't you just see the things that she'll tell you? She's done many interviews. I don't think she's not an actor. She doesn't like being behind the camera. She says what she needs to, and she looks uncomfortable and gets off the camera. Just appreciate the little gift that she is.
Yeah, and in the alive chat here, I wanted to read a comment real quick. Theoretically, said the In Time show thought her family is using her. I think it's legit, and often we need an icon / leader to move the masses, as dangerous as that is. 1-1 propaganda. And yeah, a lot of people think that people are using her and just propping her up as an example and like brainwash her.
It's easier though. That's easier than her seeing what's wrong, and the way that her brain works is that she just didn't. If something's wrong, you do something. She didn't understand why nobody was doing anything. She got really upset. and why can't it just be what it is? Why does it have to be that there's like foil hats at the end of the thought? Why? It's so aggravating. And I'm sure people think all kinds of things because that it's easier, or maybe they don't agree with her. I think that there's no reason to immediately think that the shadow group came in and started using her for their agenda.
Yeah, and it's
I'm very
really a bad,
crazy stuff.
It's a bad example of Occam's razor, because it's like people look at it as like this looks complicated, and also like, I mean, easy explanation, like why is she getting all of this attention even? People must be propping her up. Well, like people are trying to help her out, but as I've had to tell a few people now, I've been, without sounding creepy, I've been watching this girl for about 1.5 years now. Like since like the first reports came out about her.
Yeah, she's pretty boring. I mean, she's nerdy and boring. She's not a mastermind in a lab.
No, she's not a mastermind, but she is just a normal young teenage girl. She has autism of some sort, because it's a spectrum, but all that happened to her is she learned the effects of climate change, and she couldn't stop focusing on it. So she shut down and wouldn't talk to anyone for months. She basically stopped eating for a while. And she was basically doing a silent protest, but it was just out of depression. And the only people who could see were her parents. Her mom had, I think, an acting career, and her dad also did something that was kind of like high profile. So they did have means to make the changes that were necessary to help their daughter's mental state after learning this, and after like how she took it. Like they made the changes that were necessary to pull her out of her depression, and then put all of their means and resources into helping her make this movement that she's done, just so she can feel like she's fucking doing something, because it was killing her not to. And her point is, it should be everyone feeling like this. Like why is the weight on her? Like, this is her message. This isn't something that her parents set up. I mean, as far as I know, there's
a lot of things that are possible.
There's a lot of things that are possible. Yeah. But if you take
don't just jump to something because like, well, why would she do all this? And this fits what agenda? Like,
what agenda? It's her agenda. Honestly, it's her agenda. And I will defend that point until she says otherwise, because that's where I'm getting my information is that person. Yeah.
If there's evidence that comes out that says differently,
she's being used the whole time. Yeah. And I'll be like, all right, well, shit, that sucks.
I believe that there are good people. I think that there are amazing people, and some of those amazing people have means, and they run into somebody who has connections over here, and they're like, hey, I can get you over here, and then things happen all the time. And I just believe that there are good people. There are also awful. Humans are the best thing ever. I mean, a mammal that can study the stars and math is phenomenal. But we're also probably the worst thing that's ever happened. in a lot of ways. And so I'm not naive. I know there are monsters among us, but I don't think that that's the norm. And I don't think that there's an agenda all the time. And I think that it's easy to try to tear down or listen to the like dun 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 what might be than it is to just like, wow, she's fighting for these things. Well, let me go see what the research says. It's as simple as it is, I think.
All right. Yeah. I wanted to go over a couple other things concerning the climate change stuff. Not just Greta, because like if she was watching this, she would be pretty upset that the only thing we talked about was her. So we also wanted to bring up that there were multiple huge fires. So I don't mean to use the same vocabulary as Donald Trump. There were multiple huge fires. They were record-breaking. They were amazing, folks. Hot. They burned down a record amount of houses, but they were black houses. All right, so I'll stop there.
She's very covert. Very late show. Yeah, late night show. Yeah. Is it? No, just the late show.
Yeah, the late show. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I based my Donald Trump impression off of Stephen Colbert's Donald Trump impression.
You can tell. Yeah. I think he does it every single day, so he's perfected it.
Yeah. It's really good.
You have too.
Thank you. I haven't watched his stuff in a while, but yeah. Well, my Bernie Sanders impression though, that comes straight from the man himself.
That's good.
All right. So the fires that we've experienced, because we've had some in not Brazil, right? It's a different B country down in South America. Not Bolivia, is it Brazil? Christy, which one was down in South America?
Brazil had fires, yes.
It was Brazil? Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Amazon was on fire, not the company.
Which is a lot of it is in Brazil.
Yes. Yeah. So we had that. We had California. We had
that
Australia.
Fire in California, the one that just went through the town. I still haven't finished reading all the stories because I couldn't see the paper because of the tears. I can't imagine. And it made news everywhere, but I don't think people realized that people were just surrounded by fire within like 40 seconds. There was nothing they could do. It was crazy. However, afterwards you find out that the taxes that were supposed to go in, infrastructure hadn't, and like trees weren't getting, because there's just so much. It's too much to handle that fire. Yeah. It's going to be in the history books as like one of the most devastating things to ever happen.
As long as we have a future. And I would like to point out what I usually say, especially for anyone who hasn't heard it. Look, climate change is real, but it's fine. Like, the world does not need human beings to survive. It's not going to be the end of the world. The world's going to be just fine. It's just going to be a little hotter and a lot less life on it. So if you got like a little bit of nihilist in you, it's fine. It's cool. It's like, just enjoy the time you have and, the next couple generations. And then, look, we'll defeat capitalism.
Not what I was talking about.
No, not go ahead.
I want to see it when it happens.
Yeah. That said, yeah, we've had a lot of fires, and those fires obviously, uh, what's the P word? Perpetuate uh, the problem. They make it worse because then we have less trees sucking in CO2 and spewing out oxygen, which we need. We need less CO2 in the air and more in the ground to help cool the earth. But CO2 is not the only issue. Also, methane. Methane warms Earth's atmosphere at 18 to 20 times the rate as carbon dioxide does. So that's a problem. And again, we can attribute all of this to. Do you want to say it this time, Christy? Do you want me to say it? Do you want to say it? Okay. Sorry, I'm watching her struggle, and it's great. Capitalism. We can blame capitalism because why? Why would I say? Why do I blame everything on capitalism and religion? It's because factory farming. If we just had like a normal, sustainable amount of cows, especially a sustainable amount of cows in any given area, like if they could live off like the land without us, and without destroying that land, then we really wouldn't have that much of an issue like with cow farts. It's like the reason we have an issue with cow farts or burps because they don't actually fart. Fun fact, you're welcome. Is because we have too many goddamn cows because we factory farm. Right. We mass produce cows.
Yeah.
So I like it's a pretty simple rationalization when you look at it through the lens of I blame capitalism. So because I do, and it's the same issue with carbon dioxide, right? Because of vehicles. We mass produce vehicles. We have like I think I'd have to look up the number of vehicles we have, but like I'm sure we have at least enough vehicles for every person in the world, and that's a lot. Like we like outnumber as many vehicles as we have as people, and that's something you can fact check me on and call me out on. I won't bother doing it right now. Someone can show me up later.
If capitalism could have like the Hippocratic oath that doctors take, first do no harm, it would be a totally different situation, you know. And first do no harm definitely includes not hoarding 157 billion while the 2 towns over have children that didn't eat. Like it would have that in it, but it doesn't. So it just
yeah.
I have lots to say about that whole topic.
If we took a more socialist approach to fix the problem, we could
more humanist approach.
A more humanist approach, even.
Yeah.
Well, to me, damn you for making me go on rants and rabbit trails, Christy. The reason I call myself a democratic socialist or a socialist, even like almost pretty close to a socialist, is because it lines up with my humanist values more. It just does. Like if I look at the issues that I see in the world, the way that I solve those issues are like basic tenets of humanism and economic socialism. That's just how I solve issues, and I feel like it's the best, goodest way to do things. And I don't want that to be it. I don't want to be a socialist. I'm just like, socialism sounds cool. Oh wait, that's the bad thing. All right, I'm probably not.
Socialism bad. And like Iran bad. Mexico bad. You know, Israel good.
Venezuela, bad.
Sometimes bad, sometimes good.
Yeah,
China,
yeah.
bad.
Worse. No. No. It's just like I slowly just had to go kind of slide into socialism. So that's just what it was. It was kind of like my religious decline into atheism. Just like I don't think I believe in anything, and I guess that would make me an atheist. I don't even like that word, atheist.
Yeah, I was so offended.
Yeah, and then
ew.
Like I told a friend that I think it was either November or December of 2000 and must have been 16 because nothing else was that important to me at that point in time. I mean, nothing else was going on in 2016 except my own personal crisis. And I was telling that to a friend, and like, I don't even like the word atheist. Like, I don't know. Like, but I kind of think I am. And then I think by March 2017, I was just like, oh, I'm an anti-theist.
You're like breaking the law.
Yeah, breaking the law. Yeah, just like because I kind of obsess over things a little bit. I have a little bit.
For what?
So when I wanted to figure out what the hell I was thinking, I listened to a lot of debates, listened to a lot of voices, and one that really stuck with me and is making his rounds again right now, as Christy knows, is Christopher Hitchens. And if that man doesn't make you an anti-theist,
he was a cheeky motherfucker. He was very
such a smart man. And again, and I just found out the other day because there were parts that he was saying that I guess I wasn't listening to 100%, that he's also a democratic socialist. So fun fact for all you atheists out there, him and I share the same political economic values, which I thought was interesting, and was also like heartwarming. I'm like, oh yay, I got here without him, but awesome. So yeah, anyways, where the hell was I? I started thinking about Christopher. You threw me off on a rabbit trail. That's what it was. I blame capitalism.
Why me?
You.
Never. I need a fan.
We've had these. We had we had Greta, we had forest fires, we had CO2 emissions. I added on some methane emissions. So science isn't fucking talked about enough, but we won't get into all that.
Yeah, I would like my president to be smarter than me in a few things, for sure. Not questionable. Not something I'm even ready to negotiate on. I would like him smarter than me in science. I would like him smarter than me in things that matter, like how brains work and how to talk to people. I would like him to know how to read and has read many things, not just for fun, but because he wanted to learn. And science.
Stop it right there.
I think I'll say science again. I would like that to be something that they understand.
Yeah. I haven't even read my own book. Back off, Christy.
You didn't even write your own book. McTweedo.
How dare you? McTweedo. That's one of my favorite nicknames. That's so good.
He is a Cheeto McTweedo. Yes.
One of the things again that should have this was talked about in the news a little bit, more written about, the California CO2 standards, the emissions standards. And I don't want to go through the whole story. Let's see if I can just get the bullet points real quick again. So California was trying to set stricter standards than the rest of the nation. And they were working together with the automotive companies in their state. And They almost came to an agreement, a bill to where they could pass these standards that would be better than the Clean Air Act in 1970. And Donald Trump was like, whoa, 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 California, what the fuck you doing? No, I want to sell more gas. I want, to pump more fossil fuels into the air because that makes my friends money. You can't set these standards. They're like, the fuck we can't. We're California. Like, we're our own state. We got state rights, which is what they're right, always argues for. Right? Yeah. And then you're like, no, you can't do that. And do you remember how that turned out, Christy? Because I kind of don't. I didn't prepare this part. I just remembered it as we were going.
They're still fighting it.
They're still, okay.
It's not over.
Because, I know they didn't win, but I didn't remember them quite losing yet either. So, but that they're having the fight in the first place is just kind of a loss. It's really
the
sad.
Things that they want to keep in it it's not that date yet to have it done. So it's not like they had to do it or not do it. It's like the goal set. We want to have it down to here by this date. We want to have emissions down to here by this date. And so they were like, yes. And the Paris Agreement was like, yes. And then Trump came in and he was like, no. And then other states were like, well, then we're not going to do anything if we don't have to either. And so California said, I still wanna. And then federal government said, no, you're not gonna anymore. And so that's where we are right now. I hope I explained that well.
What a recap. What a recap.
You're welcome. This has been brought to you by Mary Jane. She's a really, really lovely lady.
She is such a lovely lady. That just sounded like straight County Helper stuff. Or Katie Halper. I merge names sometimes.
I do too. But Rafe Dubin will always be my favorite.
Rafe Dubin. So, okay. Another thing I couldn't not mention this again. We mentioned this on the 13th, so just a few weeks ago. In Madrid, Spain, they held a climate summit. They held COP25, the Conference of Parties. That is the 25th conference. And Greta Thunberg, she was recognized there, and she gave a speech. She did a bunch of awesome stuff, but we are done talking about her, so I will just mention that part. And one of the biggest things that came out of there is that the nations that were there had decided to really look at, and I'm not sure if they quite made the decision yet, but they decided that we should probably hold Shell, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and BP legally and morally liable for the damages done to coastal cities and towns, communities. So like the Philippines, especially the Philippines. So that is a really big deal, because
it's a strong move.
It really is. Yeah. Also, Nacho Witness just hit his goal. So congratulations, Nacha. Congratulations, and thank you everyone for helping. Yes. I kind of want to go down and read the entire list of people who donated, but I'm not going to do that because we have 8 minutes before we got to wrap up. Excuse me. But again, yes, thank you everyone for helping. Good. Getting back to the story, real quick, and I'm going to just give you guys a link real quick. The link that I'm going to share with you is the worldpopulationreview.com. It covers the CO2 emissions by country. And towards the top is a map that has from 2010 to 2019 what the total emissions were for each country and the population of that country, which is a pretty nifty little thing here.
That's swell.
And it has the biggest countries. Like you can highlight them, and it tells you exactly what each one is. If you scroll down, though, it tells you just this year. And we are number 2 on the list. China has 9 billion. 0.04. I'm sorry, 9.04 billion tons emitted, with a 6.59 emissions like per capita. But we have 5 billion tons of emissions let out, and that's with a 15.53 per capita. So we let out a lot there. But one of the other interesting things I thought were in the report here, it says, actually, I'll just read this whole paragraph because there's no need to sum up 3 sentences without just reading the 3 sentences. China has the highest level of CO2 emissions, producing 904.07 million tons of carbon dioxide in 2015. So I guess, okay, yeah. So the top says population 2019, but then I guess lower it says, it's weird. I don't know why I had the dates there like that. It's confusing. So I apologize. I was wrong a little bit. The United States has the second highest of 499.75 million tons, and has the second highest CO2 emissions per capita of 15.53. Saudi Arabia has the highest CO2 emissions per capita of 16.85. So again, China puts out the most, but Saudi Arabia puts out the most per capita. So that's an interesting thing. But we are on the second of both of those lists. So we put out the second most and the second most per capita.
Wow.
So
we're in like 27th in education, so we're doing good in something. Yeah, USA.
We are the best, but not at what you think. All right, so yeah, I thought that was good. Oh, and I said I was going to share that. I'm sorry, I'm lacking. Okay, so I think I kind of covered everything I wanted to there, and this was a brief overview of everything we wanted to cover tonight, because it took 2 hours to do the brief overview of everything we wanted to cover tonight, because these topics go so deep. And I know I listen to about, honestly, and I'm trying to give you guys like an actual accurate number.
Don't hurt yourself.
Probably between 15 and 30 hours. It varies, of news and just like researching different topics and getting different points of views on topics each week. And I can't quite keep it all straight. I'm having a difficult enough time remembering what I want to bring to the table, and then how much of it that I want and need to. So, because since I listen to most of it at work, I usually like pick up on all of it, but I cover too much sometimes. Like I don't focus on it. Any 1 or 2 or 3 things, but there's more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 things happening every single fucking week, right? Everyone understands that struggle. The reason I'm bringing it up, though, is just to, like, 1, let you know I am trying, but 2, if you ever feel bad about like not knowing enough about any one topic, again, there's a lot of fucking topics going on all the time. So don't feel bad. Ask people for help. Ask people like Christy and I for sources sometimes. That's why we're here. Like, we do this a lot. We covered these things, and it feels good to have that understanding, and then bringing it to the table each week. So I'm really, really happy that you guys all show up. There's always about 20 of you who watch live every week right now, and I really appreciate that. It helps. Yeah, it does. It rocks. And it really helps make it worth it, knowing that people care to hear about these topics. So we thank you for that. Yes. And
I want to say thanks to all that I get throughout the week, all the time. You know, hey, read this, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. That's an amazing story. I get lots of help that way from a lot of you, and I really appreciate it. I love when it wasn't even on my radar and something big, and I'm just like, wait, what? Like when the tapes were released today from the SEALs, all the stuff, all the guys that were, when SEALs don't talk, they don't open their mouths. They don't do that. So if they're all coming together to say this one guy is bad, something went wrong.
Oh, is this the Gallagher thing?
Yes, but the
more tapes, stuff came out?
Yeah, that were them individually talking to the government. Yes, individually, when they were saying all the things that he did, and it's so horrible. One, he put his finger over the trachea thing and killed him. Another, like, he's bad. One of them said he's pure evil. Well, that wasn't even on my radar because I was doing other things, and then I was like, wait, what? So I love when you guys send me that stuff, especially when it's something I wasn't even thinking about, and some of them aren't even new. It was a story from like 10 years ago. Did you know this? I'm like, what? So I love getting all of that stuff. I love.
Send me some of that stuff later, Christy.
Okay, I will. That was awesome.
All right. Are we ready for our wrap up?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it is now December 28th, 2019. So next time we see you will be 2020, and it's going to be a big year.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too. Just like with the elections alone, and I'm going to do my best to not over focus on the elections this year. We are definitely going to focus on it quite a bit, I'm sure, because Christy and I are both kind of wild about like following that. But I'm hoping
could the best day of our lives actually happen? Like, could that really be? Could it be that close that the best day of my life is right around the corner? Like, I don't know.
So, yeah, it could be a really, really, really good year, and I'm really hoping it will be. We're both rooting for Bernie Sanders. So let me close this. If you guys don't know, please check out other videos on this channel, because I'm trying to bring a little more philosophy to the channel, and I'm doing that with the help of our friend Topic Thunder, Kelly. So I brought her in for about 3 talks now, and 2 have been very recently. And we talk about usually a more philosophical topic, and we usually talk a little bit more about religion as well. And we've been doing those on Wednesday mornings to try to like let her audience see a little more of what we do as well, and also just bring in someone else's view from a different part of the world. It's fun, it's cool, and she's very nice. So please check those videos out as well. And another video that I wanted to make sure everyone checked out, and I just closed the link to it, wouldn't you know? Beelzebub just released a video. I think it was today, wasn't it?
Sure was.
His top YouTubers of 2019.
I know.
So let me copy, and I'm going to share that down below because he made a very, very nice video. And he gave a shout out to a lot of the people who have like under 500 subs, under 5,000 subs, but a lot under 500 subs. And it was very kind of him to focus on the smaller bit of the community. It was just a really good video, and he also shouted us out in there, so it was an extra reason to share that out. But yeah, so check out that video as well. But don't forget to check out the videos down in the description below. Grab some alcohol or at least a security blanket, and watch those Catholic scandal videos. And then leave a comment. I'll do my best to watch out for them, or contact me on Twitter if you guys have any questions on them. Other than that, I think we're done. Next time on League of Extraordinary Atheists, we may have something about anti-homeless bikes. If you guys haven't seen those are breaking my heart right now.
Yes.
And if you guys have any ideas for special guests, please contact us on Twitter. Tell us who you'd like to see on the show, and we'll try to get them on and have some more chats. Well,
and if you want to see Mac debate somebody, he'll do that on his channel too.
I will, or a modern day debate, because he's been doing really good at debating, or like finding me someone to debate on topics that I want to. So I will do debates because I like them. I'm just not very good yet. So, all right. We love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us on another Friday night. We hope you have a wonderful, wonderful New Year's Eve and New Year's Day.
Yes.
And yes. And we'll see you next time. So till then.
Stay humanist, for God's sake.
See you.